You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the April 18th, 2023 meeting of the Long Beach Public Safety Building Corporation. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
My name is Christopher Willoughby. I'm an attorney with Brady Nelson and James and serve as the incorporator for the Long Beach Building Corporation. This is an organizational meeting of that corporation, also scheduled to handle all other business that comes before this corporation and board of directors that has been named by the town council. So what we need to do as part of the organizational to get this off center is first we will introduce the board members. So each of you make sure you speak in the microphone. Corey Stoller. Edwin Gosling. Dan. And as such, we need to informally, we need to have somebody as an acting temporary chairperson and some to act as secretary, and then we will have formal nominations and elections of a president, secretary, and treasurer. So who would like as the voluntary temporary president? Anyone? I could just name it. I don't even volunteer president, and then we'll have someone serve as the secretary. Okay. And I'll record these for you. So I'll record it for you. Second. Oh, there we go. All right, so we have the temporary president and secretary, and so it would be appropriate to call for nominations for the office or as president. So the president, the acting president will accept nominations for the role. I will accept this, nomination of president. Nominate. I will do the I'm not going to second. All in favor? Aye. Next, accept their nomination to serve as secretary. I would like to nominate Ed to choose the secretary. And I second it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes. And treasurer, nominations? Would like to nominate Dan to serve as treasurer. Second? There's a second? I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so the temporary position will be relinquished. The formal officers of the board will take over. You will now conduct the meeting and I will help you. Oh, very good. All right, so at the outset, let me give you a little background here. So this building corporation is the statutory entity that allows the town to, it's a tool or mechanism for financing, and it is widely used throughout the state. It's a tool that's available under the Indiana Code to finance various public projects, schools, public facilities. Previously, I believe, refurbishment of the town hall. Unfortunately, the previous public corporation lapsed, and hence the new. And your charge will be essentially a holding company for the real estate that will, upon which the new public safety building will be built, and facilitate the issuance of bonds if you're so inclined. And we have some tasks to accomplish today. All of the duties that need to be accomplished and actions by the town council have been taken, including appointing the board, authorizing the setup of this corporation, and now you're again essentially the holding corporation for that. So what's before you today is we will move a little bit further along in terms of organizational. We need to adopt the proposed bylaws, of which you receive copies, and then consider the financial matters. of the documents that go along with the bond issuance, which is last week, the town council decided on issuance of bonds as the method of financing versus bank. So is there any discussion or question amongst you before we move forward?
Yeah, I have a question about the choice of forming a corporation. I understand, coming from the aerospace industry, it's common practice to form a corporation, at least the jets out. And I know why I formed a corporation for my own business, but this seems a little different. Is this put to practice quite commonly in municipal law to form a corporation to do this, to somehow insulate the village?
And it's also a method, well, this is, again, as I said at the outset, this is a statutory mechanism that allows building corporations to be established, to be used by municipalities such as the town for the purpose of financing. And by virtue of using this tool, it also allows the town to finance this project. Title of the real estate will actually be transferred to this corporation, subject to some restrictions in the articles of incorporation. And that will also allow the amount of those bonds and the borrowing capacity of the town to not be adversely affected because there are constitutional borrowing limits.
Well, when you let general obligation bonds, GO bonds, it's not common practice in Indiana then to actually do it directly through the village or town.
This is the method that the town chose to do. It could be done either way, but if the town did it the other way, that would affect the town's constitutional debt limits.
Okay.
So the reason this mechanism was chosen is to allow the town that flexibility. And that's based on the financial advice of the municipal financial advisor of Senator Assistance. Okay. So next, by resolution, you have before you a resolution that's approving the organizational matters of building corporation, including we did the election of the officers, and this would formalize your adoption of the proposed bylaws. They're very standard, not a lot of creativity in those, as well as affirming the formation of the corporation as well as related matters. So it is the first one behind the excerpts of the minutes. It'll be it's behind the Exhibit A piece of paper. And it's in the new file. The new file that these separate pile of financial documents that you received for review.
Can we get copies of all of it?
They're public records, so of course you won't have them now.
Can I go copy?
You won't have. We're not doing that right now.
Okay.
Got it. Right there. So this resolution by title is a resolution approving the organizational matters of the Long Beach Building, Public Building Corporation. And what this does is acknowledging that you're organized for the purpose of providing funds to be applied to the cost of acquiring real estate, constructing, renovating, and expanding the town facilities and leasing the facilities to the town of Long Beach. I do want to point out as part of the articles of incorporation, it's a nonprofit corporation, again, used for the purposes stated and allowed to be able to use this mechanism for financing. One of the restrictions under that is if this building corporation ceases to do business. If you guys all say, heck, I'm not doing this, and there's nobody else who wants to replace you, there's a caveat in there that says any property, anything having to do with this corporation reverts to the town. So at some point, there will be a deed signed by the building or by the town council over to the corporation. Doesn't mean that you personally own it. Doesn't mean, and we'll get to the next resolution. You'll never see or touch the proceeds of the bond issuance, because those will be held by a trustee, and we'll get to that next. So with this first resolution is formalizing the matters that we've done and acknowledging the adoption or the election of officers, adoption of the bylaws, and reaffirming the organization of this corporation. Sorry not to steal all your thunder. So if you're inclined, it'd be appropriate to entertain a motion to approve that first resolution.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the first resolution under Exhibit A.
And I second. There discussion, questions?
All in favor then?
Aye. All right. Now, the real crux of the matter is this resolution, the second one. Again, it summarizes the financial documents that you received for review, all of the bond indentures and related materials. And so for consideration and passage of this resolution, you are accepting and by resolution authorizing the issuance of the bonds. Those will be through the bank, right? And going forward, when there will be a trustee, which is first mortgage. Yes, and so they will serve as the trustee. And as part of this, you're also naming the clerk treasurer and or the town administrator as your lessor representatives. So the check and balance and the intention here is that any claims that come through, claims for payment, any of those things will be monitored. The trustee will receive and or anything sent here. And we have it and or so that if the clerk treasurer is not available, the town administrator is and vice versa. And that is who on your behalf would be able to make decisions and okay the release of those payments. And as part of this resolution, you're appointing the bank trustee who will hold those funds. So when the bonds are issued, there will be funds that are available. Again, those don't come to you. They're not sitting in the town. The funds that the monies will be delineated in these documents. And then those progress payments will be paid. And it's limited as indicated in this resolution. So by this resolution, you're summarizing here, of course, the black and white is what dictates, but the main crux is authorizing the issuance of those bonds for the purposes stated, to authorize entering the lease as well as the officers, the president and secretary to sign those documents, as well as any addendums and related documents that are required to close on those months. So with that summary, it's probably appropriate for you to have discussion if you amongst yourself, if there are any questions that anybody has. Yeah, it's under the exhibit B portion of the excerpts of the minutes.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really, I guess for lack of a better description, you're really the strong person in this, the strong entity that is the holding company. You facilitate the bond and the third party that's allowed, again, the mechanism that's provided under Indiana law. You will hold the corporation, those lease payments, those funds will get applied against until down, and at some point, everything reverts back to the town.
Indiana, the operating agreement covers its corporation, its pages.
Yeah, the bylaw, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I read through the approximately 20 pages of this the relationship. It seems to me that it's a little unclear to me that who pays the insurance. It sounds like a partnership between the village or between the town and the corporation to make sure that there's proper insurance in place. It's a responsibility of the lessor, that would be us, to make sure that the facility is intact. But then on the other hand, the town is responsible as well. And it's our purview to make sure that the town has the proper insurance as well. So it sounds like a handshake that has to do with the town and the corporation, making sure that.
Well, it is formal in that you're a real and actual and functioning entity. Those responsibilities are shifted via the lease and the other documents to the town council, to the town of Long Beach through the town council. So you're correct in that, you know, again, in terms of emotion, you're the landlord, they're the tenant, right? All of the responsibility is on the town. It is upon you, and you have the authority and the ability to take the town to task if they're out of compliance.
Well, I come from all of this from an architectural designer standpoint, because that's my background. You know, so that's my area of interest, but the mechanics of getting the building up are something of an interest to me. And as I've experienced, there's always cost improvements. And we have a ceiling of $2.9 million in, that we're overseeing.
Yes.
What happens if we have cost overruns and things like that? Do we renegotiate the agreements?
Well, I think all of those are very important, and at the council level, and what the discussions have been is the actual contract for construction is 2.5 million. There are no more approvals or there's no financing above that level without an approval of a change order or an increase in amount. You overall approximate it's 2.9, including all of the financing costs. So that's why that heightened amount from the base of the construction. But that is it. And those are the risks, and those have been brought up in conversation of, all right, what if we, in the tact and the discussion, and at least it seems the result of the council has been, if we start to approach those outer limits, you're going to have to scale back. And that's what has been represented is it's not getting bigger, it's going smaller. Unfortunately, I can't speak to what the town council agrees to. Yes, there would probably have to be some amendments here if that were the eventuality, but the deal is the deal as we sign it. So unless there was some additional agreement and future meetings, let's just say there's one, right? Immediately for easy math, we need an extra 100,000. Some of those things, the town would have to come up with that money, and it doesn't involve you at all, but there's more process involved. And if this deal would change, we would have to do more of what procedures that the town council has done. We'd have to do more of what we're doing here today.
And Chris, is that contract with the general contractor a guaranteed maximum price contract?
It's subject to being, so yes, let me back up. It is set at 2.5. They could, if something comes along, something's more expensive because everything's so many
Contractors have risk or deal in this contract.
No, the town council will be involved every step of the way in terms of the bids that they're really managing the construction of it, which allowed that there's some simplicity that gets added to that. That's the nature of them having to babysit and pay attention to those things coming through. And again, I think valid points that have come residents from the public is you need to make sure that we're watching this before it's a $5 million building that is the intended and how we pay for that, right? But that's part of the give and take with this trustee of that money being held. Those funds or invoices coming in is your lesser rep, which would be the responsibility of the clerk's office and or the town administrator. It's set up where both will receive exact same information. Same as you being informed so that you're not out of the loop or all of a sudden get called to task in a year and we need to have an emergency meeting and you guys don't have a clue. So you will be advised as well. Like I said, town administrator, town clerk will make sure that all of those things are. And then passed along in terms of invoices and requests for payment to come through. And then at some point it is on the town council to oversee closely and make sure that it comes in, right?
Well, the Chief Switek would be the conduit of all the ventures or all.
He is your conduit as we are approving today. If you're inclined, it'll be town administrator chief and clerk, it's and/or, so both potentially are, and we allowed some backup there so that if he's not available and he's in Aruba, Clerk Perry in his office can handle it and vice versa.
Could take us to.
That's where your next meeting next week.
Okay, right.
So have we answered all of your?
We're interested overseers, not meddlesome overseers.
But it doesn't mean that you don't have a voice and you're not a representative. So that's
Okay.
this is a process. It is a statutory deed. So that part of it, like I said, it is from the Indiana code that allows us to do this. But, the details of it is obviously unique to the project that's going here, but you're entitled to, I serve as your counsel, you're entitled to information, you're entitled to ask questions, and I encourage you to.
That answers a question I was just going to ask you. For legal, you're to counsel,
Yes,
and for money, chief of staff.
yes, that sounds good to me.
We will go to the council.
Yes. Well, and ultimately the trustee was gonna hold. So with that, as part of this, you're agreeing or to consider is appointing the clerk treasurer, Tim Perry, or his successor, as well as the town administrator, Mark Swistek, or his successor, along with approval. So as you work less or reps. And so with consideration of this second resolution, you're also making the determination that the loan does not exceed 2.9 million. It is generally intended to cover the cost of the proposed acquisition and construction of the new public safety facility, equipment, cost of land, architects, attorney's fees, which by the way includes bond counsel. It includes the funds of the town's financial advisor, Carl Sender and Associates, interest on the bonds during the construction and miscellaneous expenses. So all of those are laid out in those documents that you've received. So if you adopt that statement of my summary there, Mr. President, then it's appropriate for you guys to consider if you're inclined approval or denial of the second.
Yeah, so I would like to make a motion, in regard to accept the resolution for the issuance of bonds or transaction documents related thereto.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, that concludes, other than, and each of these resolutions authorizes appropriate signatures. Now, all of these documents that have been prepared, they are to be held in trust. So none of them will be released, meaning, or they'll be held in escrow, I'm sorry, so that they'll be executed in advance of contemplated closing on the bonds, which is May 2nd. That could change. I don't control it. I'm not involved in it in terms of the logistics of it, but that is what's set. I was surprised how quickly after the town council decided last Monday of the method of financing, how quickly they were able to turn that around. My understanding is they are. So these documents prepared by bond counsel will be held in escrow. There's various signatures that memorialize what you've approved in these resolutions. And from there, any future changes would be anything that would get kicked back by bond counsel after their review of signed documents and prior to the issuance of the bonds and the funding.
So, and do you know how old the pricing is from the last set of bids they received?
I don't, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I do know this latest round was updated when they were doing the bank financing. So I believe that it's within the last couple of weeks because they were, as Mr. Coker and Mr. Johnston and John Wall were looking and trying, and then the bank, a few of the banks backed out, and I think everybody decided, well, they did decide last Monday that the bonds were not. So that is all the business I have before you. You can open it for discussion. You can adjourn. You can entertain. It's the
Public comment?
public. And as we discussed at the outset, You have public here, you're not legally required to have public comment. It is not part of your agenda today, however, you're allowed. You run the show, I root for you, so.
Oh, yeah, it's good. I'm sure, absolutely. Let's talk about comment.
Thank you.
Do you want to, and this is just, I don't think we have a huge budget, unless we have 5. Do you want to limit? You don't have to limit it. You could limit it to 3 minutes. You can just generally, it's your call. Doesn't matter to me. And I just reminding that it's comment and not question.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll go limit it to 5 minutes. It's great.
Yeah, it's like,
That's acceptable.
so everybody just needs to come to the mic. We do, I believe, Ms. Mayor, I don't know why. Just, yeah, so everybody needs to come to the mic, introduce yourself, name and address.
And just really quickly, just so everyone understands, generally in meetings that I've been on boards and things that I've done before, we generally will not respond. Okay.
They're right.
I think that means good.
Should be great, move it back into here, great.
Get the rabbit.
To be honest, something too.
Okay, Jim. Thanks for taking both the comments. Jim Nyder, 2201 Forum. I appreciate you gentlemen taking on the responsibility of the Long Beach Building Corporation. A couple of questions about the financing. The bond is actually borrowed by the building corporation, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you have to put up collateral for that bond?
As I understand it, Chris, it's secured by the real estate income tax that's generated and set aside for this particular project.
I want to remind, but it's okay to have give and take. So I'm not a discourage you, I just always remind. So answering these questions, some things may or may not be appropriate for you, you may be better off, but yes, you're generally correct. There isn't a mortgage. That property and everything that's with it, it will be in the title, in the name of the corporation, but the funds, as Ed explained, is what will secure the deal.
Okay, so if I'm hearing correctly, the property where the building is going to be built, the building and the town center is all part of that?
No, it's only a certain amount of lots, which include and there'll be a deed issued by the town council. So that deed will be coming down the pike and you'll be able, there'll all be public records. So you'll be able to see that. So there's certain lots that are part of the overall center, for lack of a better description.
Okay.
If you go on Beacon, it pulls up everything, but it's not the town center. It's not the entirety of the parking lot. There are certain lots that are earmarked.
And does that assess out to the 2.9?
No, it doesn't have to either. And in fact, the real estate should not, and it should be under the project. So it's not orthodox. It's just kind of as you're going down, it's counterintuitive. I'm sorry if you don't want me to have an exchange. So it's not expected to. It isn't securing. There won't be a mortgage. There won't be any of those normal things that you think about in a real estate transaction. In fact, those appraisals are going to be completed before any property is conveyed.
Yes.
It would be a good problem if they were worth more than this project in terms of overall value.
Yes.
I don't, but that's not
So just to
anticipated.
let you know that I'm totally for this project. I'm just trying to get the understanding of what's going on. When the lease, does the lease begin when the building is actually built, or does it?
When it's funded and those projects, I believe it's set for June payment, but I could be wrong of it.
But I thought I read that the lease begins once the building is, once the fire department can use it.
But those payments will start to be, the expenses and all of those will be, start to be applied immediately.
And my next question is the lease payments. Is the lease payments made from the town to the corporation, or does it go directly to the trustee?
No money, that the trustee is going to apply these funds. So
Yeah.
those lease payments and this is getting leased back and these funds are getting applied. And again, I know it's a kind of,
If I was in town,
yes,
who would I be writing that check to?
You'll be like writing to the trust.
To the trustee who will be holding it on behalf.
To the trustee. So, but the lease is between the building corporation and the town, not the trustee.
That's right. The trustee is just excuse me,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
So that part of it. Sorry, the trustee, yeah, it's just retained to manage those funds and hold it in trust so that, again, there's oversight and transparency with, and somebody who's an expert in what we're doing.
And my last question, and this has no reflection on your ability as an attorney. If there is a disagreement between the building corporation and the town manager or the town administrator or the town council in the building corporation, will there be a conflict of interest?
If there is a disagreement that involves something that I'm involved in, I have a conflict, absolutely, everybody would go retain counsel.
Okay.
The way that it's being done now, for instance, if you go to the Secretary of State website and you look at the previous incorporation documents, longtime town attorney, now Judge Thorne was the incorporator. So what we're doing is very standard, but you're not wrong in that if you look at that worst case scenario, my opinion, and ethically, I believe that I would be bound if there was what I sense to be a conflict, real or the perception of, everybody would go get a different attorney.
And thank you for the time, and I wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's up to your call. Anybody online?
Anybody else here want to make comments?
Sure. Does anyone on Zoom have a question?
Yeah, I open.
Yeah, please, okay. I'm Helen Sheridan and 2016 Somerset. And this is basically sale leaseback. And it's a way of moving this off the shines. You were in aerospace industry, so you know that at the Southwest Airlines, I buy a plane premium. That lease back goes on my books. So the debt does go follow the town and has to be reported because it's just a blind way of circumventing our bond ratio thing. As it stands right now, looking at it, that leads us, we need to look at the cash flow issues that are coming down the pipe with paying off a substantial amount of bills. We're looking at anywhere from from $500,000 to $1 million of additional payments that the town's going to be obligated to pay on the gold bond, the bond, whatever financing goes on with the fire truck, which is going to cost us $1 million there. And then looking at the cost of paying this building. So the way this will happen is all the payments, you basically disappear. Once that goes on, and everything is managed between the treasurer, clerk treasurer, and the trustee, and all the payments are pushed out through that office to the bank and the trustee to pay the bondholders. And the bottom line is, there are other things to consider in looking at the overall town financial situation long term. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
For those who aren't aware, Alan is the deputy clerk. So if you're not aware, she works closely and handles quite a bit for that office. So just want to make sure that that's clear.
Any questions on Zoom?
Everybody's entertaining a motion to adjourn.
I agree. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Somebody can stick around and sign some docs. Yeah.